You are welcome back. Hope you have had your lunch and hope you have refreshed for this session. It's a great pleasure to have you in this environmental compliance training workshop for mining and manufacturing sector. At the mining session, we reviewed environmental laws in the mining sector, and we believe you had a wonderful time. Please be informed that the recording will be made available on our YouTube channel. This session will last for 1 hour 30 minutes, and at the end of this session, participants should be able to answer the following questions. 1, what is environmental impact statement, EIS? What is hazardous substance storage plan? What is environmental audit? What is Environmental Protection and Rehabilitation Program, EPRP? What is Community Development Agreement, CDA? And how to go about developing and executing them. The organizer of this workshop is Richflood International. Richflood International is a leading continental provider of environmental and social due diligence services for investment in Africa. This firm works closely with investors and leaders in the public and private sector of different economies in Africa, providing a range of services relating to impact assessment of investment projects. With its current activities, Richflood have established partnerships in the United States and United Kingdom with operational partnerships in a few African countries, namely South Africa, Egypt, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda, with its headquarters in Abuja, Nigeria. The following are the housekeeping rules we would like you to follow for a successful session. Firstly, mute yourselves and put off your video for maximum efficiency and network issues in the course of this event. You can tender your questions or suggestions in the chat box. This button is located at the bottom of your screen on a computer and at the top of a tablet. Please also include your name and location in the word. Rename yourself and add your organization after your name in brackets so that whenever you ask a question, you can know where you are from and answer you appropriately. I would now like to introduce our trainer for this session, Mrs. Adeola Adewale Olajubagbe. She is the head of technical department at Richflood International Limited Abuja office. She is undergoing a PhD in ecology and environmental science, and currently she is a practitioner in environmental impact assessment and specializes in environmental control and management. You are welcome, Mrs. Adeola.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Today, we have had the morning session, as mentioned by the moderator, and then the afternoon session, I will be taking us through some terminologies, taking us directly into the introduction of those terminologies, focusing on the benefits and the essence of carrying out each of the studies. First, we'll start with the environmental impact statement, because in this line, we have the environmental impact statement, which is the EIS. We have the hazardous substance storage plan, HSSP. We have the environmental audit, EAU. And we'll also be taking a look at environmental protection and rehabilitation program, as well as community development agreement. But first now, let's start with EIS, which is environmental impact statement. What do we mean by this EIS? EIS is a government document that outlines the impact of a proposed project on its surrounding environment. And in order to acquire this EIS, the environmental impact assessment study being carried out. Now, we mean environmental impact assessment study. We talk about a process of evaluating the likely environmental impact of a proposed project or development, taking into account the interrelated socioeconomic, the cultural, and human health impacts, both the beneficial and the adverse impacts. EIA aims to predict environmental impacts at an early stage in project planning and design. It finds ways and means to reduce adverse impacts, shape projects to suit the local environment, and present the predictions and options to decision maker. Most importantly, it is focused on proposed physical development. For instance, we have manufacturing industry, we have mining, we have power sector industries, and so on and so forth. And then this EIA has a lot of objectives in line with the statutory requirements for environmental protection in Nigeria. An environmental impact assessment study is being proposed to carry out series of activities in order to meet certain objectives. First, we have to satisfy the federal, state, and local governments, as well as stakeholders that have environmental actions to be taken, which will be incorporated into the project design, the construction phase, and the operation phase, even up to the decommissioning phase of a project. And this EIA helps to establish the baseline environmental and social condition of a proposed project area. With the head of environmental impact assessment, we are able to identify, quantify, and assess the likely negative and positive environmental impact of a proposed project that is being designed at the moment. And after developing the environmental impact assessment reports, we are able to analyze and assess all the impacts and develop an effective environmental management plan, which will last the lifespan of the project, including compliance, monitoring, even auditing and contingency planning. And what are the benefits that we tend to derive while conducting this environmental impact assessment? First, we'll be able to understand the nature and location of the project as well as possible alternatives. Secondly, we'll be able to identify the factors of analysis and assessment objective. Then we would have the advantage of identifying the impact at the preliminary stage. Baseline studies of the project environment will also be extensively conducted in order to collect the necessary data that will be used for assessment in the future. Also, it will help to develop the important mitigation measures that will reduce the impact of a project to as low as reasonably practicable, and also to monitor the impacts and manage them appropriately. Now, to achieve this EIS, as I stated earlier, the environmental impact assessment has a series of stages that it needs to undergo before this certificate is being issued. First, we have the screening stage, which is where it is being determined the effect of the development on the environment and also whether the effects are significant or not. And to determine which projects or developments require a full or partial impact assessment study, an initial environmental examination is being carried out, which includes site verification. And then next to it, we go to the scoping, which is the stage in which we identify the key issues and impacts that should be further investigated. Actually, this particular stage will help to define the boundary and time limits of the study. Also, we have the baseline study. Now, following on from scoping, it is essential to collect all relevant information on the current status of the environment, the description of the physical, biological, and social environment likely to be affected by the proposed development. Therefore, during the baseline study, the existing baseline condition of the environmental area of the project location will be assessed. And also, after assessing all these physical and biological as well as social aspects of the environment, it will help us to predict the likely impacts that are expected to emanate from the project operations. And from this, it will also guide us to develop the necessary mitigation measures to combat all of those impacts that are identified. Next on this stage, we have the impact prediction and assessment. And this stage of EIA identifies and predicts likely environmental and social impact of the proposed project and also evaluates the significance. In this stage, we determine if and why an impact is significant and whether it is a key task to inform decision on the acceptability of a project through environmental impact assessment. And this impact is being rated according to their magnitude. Then we have the framework for impact mitigation, which has to do with revealing the damages that are likely to come upon the environment as a result of the project's activities. And all this may be alleviated by mitigation measures, which involves taking measures to reduce or remove environmental impacts. And it can be seen that the iterative nature of the EIA process is well demonstrated right at this stage. The purpose of this mitigation is first to find better ways of doing things. Secondly, to enhance environmental and social benefits. Another purpose of this mitigation is to avoid, minimize, or remedy adverse impact. And then again, it will help to ensure that residual impacts are within acceptable levels. Next to it, having done all these steps and carried out all these studies, then the outcome of this EIA is usually a formal document, which is known as the Environmental Impact Assessment Report, which sets out factual information relating to the development and all the information gathered relating to all the studies that has been mentioned earlier, which is the screening, the scoping, and the baseline study, the impact prediction and assessment, down to mitigation and monitoring measures. Then once the result has been compiled, then the EIA will be reviewed. And this EIA is usually submitted to competent authority, which is the body of authority to permit or refuse the development applications. And in this case, in Nigeria, we have the Federal Ministry of Environment. And after this, we'll go to the decision making. This is the stage where the environmental impact assessment of the proposed project is being defended to determine whether the project should be approved for implementation or not, where the environmental impact assessment or the EIA certificate will therefore be issued. Also in our training today, we have the environmental audit. This environmental protection has become a more central topic of discussion worldwide and an imperative for sustainable development. This therefore calls for the environmental audit of existing industries and environmental impact assessment of new industries and major developmental projects as contained in the National Environmental Regulation. And this environmental audit is being referred to as the environmental management tool for measuring the effect of certain activities on the environment against set criteria or standards. Auditing in general is being viewed as a methodological examination which involves analysis, tests, and confirmation of procedures and practices whose goal is mainly to verify whether those practices and procedures comply with legal requirements, internal policies, and acceptable practices. According to the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, environmental audit is being defined as the process of reviewing activities and records against defined standards or procedures to establish what is being done and how far the process is complying with requirements. There are different reasons why this environmental audit is being conducted for facilities which are already in existence. First, to investigate. Second, to understand. And third, to identify. And all these three are referring to the impact of the project operation activities on the environment. And the objectives of environmental audit includes first, to determine and document compliance status of a facility. Secondly, to improve their environmental performance. Thirdly, to assist the facility management. Also to develop the environmental management system, that is the EMS. And to develop the basis for optimizing environmental performance. Now, what are the benefits of this environmental audit? The benefits range from ensuring an adequate, up-to-date environmental database for internal management, awareness, and decision-making in relation to new plans, to providing information base for use in emergency response arrangements. Environmental audit helps to ensure compliance with environmental laws and regulations, and it helps to identify the cost-saving methods that can be adopted by an existing facility, ranging from reduction of their emissions as a result of their operations. And this in turn will finally result into minimization of pollution that is being contributed into the environment as a result of the project operation. Environmental audit raises awareness of the importance of professional environment management throughout the organization. It provides valuable information for future planning. An environmental audit will not only remove all the possibilities of environmental incidents, but it will at least reduce their likelihood. And you see, still adjoining to the environmental impact assessment procedure that was explained earlier, environmental audit relates of EIA, and it encompasses monitoring of impact, which is the continued environmental management of a project. Now we'll take a look at the hazardous substance storage plan. This is the plan that provides instruction on the prevention, detection, containment, response, and mitigation of accidents that could result from storing hazardous substances. An hazardous material is one that, due to its physical, chemical, or other properties, poses an hazard to human health or the environment when it is improperly handled, used, stored, disposed of, or otherwise managed. If hazardous chemicals are not stored correctly, they can lead to contaminations, fire incidents, spillage, release of gas, and even toxic exposures. Therefore, the information for storing any hazardous material should be kept in a safety data sheet, the SDS, and it should be ensured that these hazardous chemicals are being stored in a location in which we will incorporate all the appropriate risk measures. We'll put them into consideration and ensure that they don't occur at all, or even if they do eventually, it is minimal. Now, all the hazardous substances should be stored in such a manner as to prevent incompatible materials from being accidentally mixed together in the event of the breakage of one or more containers in the storage area, or to prevent formation or buildup of reactive vapor. You see, a number of general principles for the safe storage of hazardous substances should be put into consideration, such as ensuring safe design, location and installation of storage and handling system, making sure that separate incompatible substances are not together to prevent reactive substances interacting. We should ensure that to control potential ignition sources around flammable substances by ensuring that there is appropriate safety signages and placards positioned at strategic places where these hazardous substances are kept, and also a functioning cleanup system. And the purpose of this hazardous substance storage plan is first to provide for effective management of fire and to prevent accidental mixing in emergencies. Also, we have to minimize exposure to corrosive and toxic substances, and then to comply with regulatory relevant statutory agencies on the safety obligations. And we have different classes of hazardous substances, all of which should be kept safe according to their class specification and the prevention measures that are attributed to them. In the first class, we have the explosive. In the second class, we have the flammable solids. Fifth, we have oxidizing substances and organic products. Then we have the poisonous or toxic and infectious substances. Then we have, for number 7, we have the nuclear substances within the meaning of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act, which are mainly radioactive. Then we have the corrosive the EPR that is being developed, which contains the methods to be adopted in accomplishing an effective and efficient final closure of a project, which is usually a mining project. The EPRP is usually developed in the mining sector, and the major aim of this EPRP is to ensure that the project is carried out in a safe and sustainable manner, and to ensure that resources are efficiently extracted, and that while the extraction is ongoing, the environment is protected, and to ultimately ensure that rehabilitation is achieved, that is, after the mining operations. And there are some major objectives of this EPRP. First, it provides an efficient action plan for conducting mining operation. Another objective of EPRP is to provide environmentally sound conditions suitable for future economic use. Also, to rehabilitate or reclaim the mining area. Also, to provide an efficient closure plan for mining projects, and ultimately to comply with the applicable regulations of the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. And conducting this EPRP has a number of benefits. First, it helps to provide all these action plans that will enable us to conduct the mining operation in a safe manner, such that while carrying out the mining operations, the environment will still be in a sound condition that is suitable for future economic use. And also to ensure that an adequate decommissioning or closure plan is being prepared for a mining or quarry project right from the beginning of the project execution. And to also ensure that a sequential plan or arrangement is being made to ease the rehabilitation process for the operator at the end of the mining sector. And basically, it helps to recommend a progressive reclamation procedure to ensure that the entire system of rehabilitation and revegetation is easy for the operator, and also ensure that the environment is used in a sustainable manner. Now we have the Community Development Agreement, which is a vital mechanism for ensuring that local communities benefit from large-scale investment projects, such as mining or even manufacturing sector companies. A Community Development Agreement, or CDA, is an agreement between an investor and a community, which provides a mechanism through which the benefit of an investment project can be shared directly with local communities and other project affected stakeholders. Sharing agreement. And the community. CDA sets out how the benefit of an investment project will be shared with the local community. And the need for CDA is especially acute. Mental and social costs are often borne by communities, while project benefits accrue in national capitals and global financial centers, leading to conflict between the local people and miners. CDA involves undertaking with respect to the social and economic contributions that the project will make to the sustainability of the host community. The CDA addresses issues relevant to the host community. For example, the provision of educational scholarships, financial contribution in support of infrastructural development, assistance with the creation, development, and support of small-scale and micro enterprises, and on like that. Quite a number of ways in which the community benefits from a project while signing this community development agreement. And what is the essence of having this CDA? First, to ensure that host communities benefit from the mining and manufacturing operations that take place within their communities. Secondly, to minimize community conflicts, agitations, and hostilities arising from perceived neglect and environmental degradation reminiscent of mining and manufacturing operations. Also to ensure harmony and a conducive operating environment. And like it was extensively discussed during the morning session, there are a number of national and even international environmental regulation and standards that has to do with all these terminologies which we have discussed today. For the hazardous plans that is being developed in the management of hazardous substances, we have the harmful waste, which prohibits all activities relating to the purchase, sale, importation, transit, transportation, deposit, and storage of harmful waste. Also for other forms of the environmental terminologies that has been discussed, we have quite a number of regulations that has to do with them, especially in the mining and applicable to the manufacturing sector. We have the National Policy on the Environment of 1989. We have the National Environmental Protection, which has to do with management of solid and hazardous regulations. Also, we have the National Environmental Protection Regulations, which has to do with effluent limitation. And for the environmental impact statement that is being issued, we have the Environmental Impact Assessment CAP E12 LFN 2004 by the Federal Ministry of Environment, which guides the procedures. Then we have also the National Guidelines of Environmental Audit, which provides an overview of types of audits, what an audit should entail, and guidelines for carrying out audits. All of these regulations, they come together to guide the operations of developmental project activities to protect the environment. Also, the National Guidelines of Environmental Management System recognize the value of EMS. And this document sets out objectives and provides a guide on the general scope and content of the environmental management system, which usually guides the operation of any facility, whether the mining or even the manufacturing sector. And we have quite a number of environmental protection regulations as well that has to do with pollution abatement in industries or facilities generating waste. And this particular provision prescribes minimum standards and permissible levels to be emitted or discharged into the environment. And most importantly, in this regulation, we have the air quality standards, which is designed to achieve a desirable level of air quality. And it also covers the licensing of polluting activities and imposition of certain quality standards, all in a bid to ensure a safe environment. And among the regulatory agency that ensures the compliance of all these guidelines and regulations is the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, which is the NESRA. And NESRA is charged with the responsibility of enforcing all environmental laws, guidelines, policies, standards, and regulations in Nigeria. It also has the responsibility to enforce compliance with provisions of international agreements, protocols, conventions, and treaties in the environment. In conclusion, the essence of all these terminologies that we have explained, their basic and then their benefits, is to ensure we have a sustainable environment, even while we are mining, while we are conducting our manufacturing processes. Because a good environmental assessment is equal to good management, and a good management is equal to good business, which in turn reduces time and helps to make easy the process of development. Because by evaluating and monitoring our environment, we are in turn benefiting ourselves both financially, and we are also increasing our production performance. Thank you. Okay, just before I leave the stage, during the course of the presentation, we have received a number of questions, but before we go into the question, I would like to hand over to Dr. Asokoro Ogaje, who will take us through a recap of both the morning session and the afternoon session. Then we'll go straight to the question and answer session. Over to you, Mon.
Thanks very much for that presentation. That was really a good one. That was very comprehensive. Thank you. So I'll be doing a recap of what we have learned so far and how we should be applying what we have learned in our activities. The essence of training is for continuous improvement. The essence of training is for continuous improvement. Improvement in what we do, improvement in how we do it, improvement in how we see things. So if at the end of every training there was no difference in how you see things, there's no difference in how you do things or the perspective from which you take action, then there is no need to attend any training in the first place. So the essence of trainings is to continuously improve in whatever we do. If you're an HSC official, it is to improve on what you do. And if you have supervisors that do not understand what it means to safeguard the environment or to do operations sustainably, it is your role because you have taken this training to take the lead. And if you're a management or a leader that is attending this event, the essence of you attending this event is to get back to your firm or to your organization or to your company and effect changes. Without changes, it will be a waste of time that you spend almost over 3 hours to get this training. It will be a waste of time. So we are not usually excited when we see our trainees or participants at our training still doing things as if they never had the training. We are usually very, very disappointed. So we hope that the continuous improvement that is required in your operation or in the planning activities or monitoring activities or whatever activity that you do, we hope that continuous improvement will be a very, very important word and action that you are committed to. So moving forward, I would like to do a recap of major outcomes that we may have or major lessons that we may have learned today. We reviewed the environmental regulations. I was so happy to get an email from someone who said he never knew these laws existed and never saw some of them and has been practicing for almost 15 years. It's unfortunate actually, but we shouldn't be having that. We should, that's why we are happy that this training took place. We should look for those laws relevant to each operation. For instance, if I'm operating in the power sector, I will look for the regulations that are regulating that sector. It's important to do that. It's important to do that. So I'm very glad that the laws came in handy and the information is useful for you as you go ahead. So we also learned the basics of environmental and social impact assessment, and we also learned about what EIS is. In the morning, I mentioned that, and Adiola took a deeper dimension to this. So this training, like I said, these are all basics. These are all basics. We have detailed trainings that you should be interested in and make sure that you pursue to have them and have knowledge of them, and by implication, implement what you need to implement for either your ongoing operation or your proposed project. So generally, impacts can be impacts are being identified during the ESIA, as Adiola has mentioned, and all of these, including environmental audit, EPRP, and all of these are all trying to take care of impacts that are generated from different aspects of our operation. Impacts can be air pollution, it can be water pollution, impacts can be affecting biodiversity, it can be deforestation, it could be desertification, and it could even lead to global warming. All of this impacts are being looked into during an environmental impact assessment, or even during environmental auditing, and even when you are taking a deep into EPRP, developing an EPRP for your activities. So these impacts have been looked into, including invasive species, and over harvesting. These are all areas of where impacts are being generated, and they should be of a major concern during your operation or your project. So the steps for ESIA was discussed, which includes project scoping, project screening, the consideration of alternatives for your project, the description of the project development action, the description of environmental baseline, identification of main impacts that your project is going to bring upon the environment, and prediction of the impacts, by way of saying, okay, if I'm going to take this action, this is how it's going to affect my operation, and this is how I want to mitigate it, I want to reduce it. So that brings me to the evaluation and assessment of significant accesses, the relative significance that, the prediction of significant impacts that your projects or activities may cause. And then mitigation, which introduces the measures to avoid, to reduce, to remedy, or compensate for any significant adverse impacts that your project is going to be having. And all of this process we mentioned that it has to have public consultation and participation in all of the processes throughout your project life cycle. There must be public consultation and participation. Like you remember, I mentioned that you should get the SEP training on the Richflood YouTube channel. Also, we talked about the EIS, which is Environmental Impact Statement. EIS documents, it documents the information about and estimates the impact derived from the various steps in the processes of the project. It is crucial that this information in the EIS are presented accordingly. Otherwise a lack of proper information might lead to worsening of impact and failure, on the part of the organization. So the EIS process also includes, the EIS process includes decision making and also post-decision monitoring, which in Nigeria is called impact mitigation monitoring. And also, after that, you have the environmental auditing. It also follows from monitoring. Auditing follows from monitoring. It can involve comparing actual outcomes with predicted outcomes, and can be used to assess the quality of predictions and the effectiveness of the mitigation. So I would go further on the CDA, Community Development Agreement. Not much, I dwelt on it, so I would not want to mention much on that. So it is your obligation as either HSE manager, business owner, quarry owner, mine owner, or whoever you are in an organization that have taken this course. It is your obligation to make sure that your firm complies with standards, with laws, with governance, with policies, and rules and regulations for your sector, the sector that you operate. There is no two ways about it. Compliance is important and should be taken very, very seriously. Compliance is important and should be taken very, very seriously. So aside compliance, we would like to still reiterate, just like I presented earlier, that you should take you should take very seriously the standards that is pertaining to environmental obligations of your operations of your facility, of your company. So the standard that I would recommend on a final note is the ISO 14000 family. It includes most notably so many standards which represent the core set of standards used by organizations for designing and implementing an effective management, environmental management system. You know, ISO 14001 is the only certifiable standard of the ISO 14000 family. So, but the other standards are majorly guidelines, which are all in the 14000 series. And I would really advise that you contact the Richflood office so that you can get involved in all of this standardization for your quarry or for your mine site or for your manufacturing business. We have the ISO 14001, 14004, 5, 6, 15, 20, 21, 24, 25, and so on. A lot of guidelines. For instance, 14006 is the Environmental Management Systems Guidelines on Eco Design, for instance. Another one is on General Principles. Another one is on environmental performance evaluation. Another one is on life cycle assessment. You know, all of those guidelines are very, very important for you to be able to standardize your operations in accordance with international standards. So my next and final slide, let me see, is to encourage you to like the Richflood page, because we have a lot of future events that are going to be coming up. Some are sponsored, some are not sponsored, and some are really, really in detail. Like Adiola said earlier in the introduction in the morning, that Richflood is considering some scholarship for a few people, including young practitioners and operators that will be willing to take a 7-day course. Yeah, I think, is this 7-day course, Adiola? 7-day course for looking into all of this that we have talked about, but this time around in detail. You don't want to, we can't achieve everything in just 3 hours or 4 hours or just a day. There's a lot to be done, and we will take you through what you need so that when you get back to your operation, you will be able to start implementing and even get back to us on how to go about specific cases, scenarios, or incidents in your facility. So you can go to the LinkedIn page of Richflood. This is the major source of information channel that you can rely on. Normally we do emailing to all of our participants, but I tell you, it may not be very effective. You may have to hook up to our LinkedIn channel and like the page, and then follow us all the way as we bring you updates, not only updates on events, we also bring you updates on professional opinions about certain circumstances in Africa. We also bring you updates on so many other sector operations that you would like to know, you know, just a glimpse or just a second or two. You just take a look at something and it makes a whole lot of difference, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So I want to thank you very much all for this time we have had together. I will be taking questions as long as we have time. I'll be taking questions, but if I cannot take your question, please make it a duty to send me an email, comfort@richflood.com, or send to info@richflood.com, or clientservices@richflood.com, or projects@richflood.com. It depends, any of our official emails. You can send us emails and we can look at what is the issue with your project, or a certain advice that you require. We do all of this pro bono, yes, pro bono, and it has been very good for our clients and for people associated with Richflood. So we welcome you to join us in any way that you can. And if you are also a trainer and you want to be part of this, we welcome you to come on board and join our partners that conducting training globally, and we will see how we can work together to make sure that we bring this information to people when required and collectively contributes to having a sustainable future. I thank you very much, and at this point I will hand over to or rather who would watch to see whether you have questions, and I will let Adiola bring them up so that it can be answered. Thanks again, and let's see your questions.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that extensive recap of both the morning session and the afternoon session. Actually, quite a number of questions has rolled in for our moderator here. I don't know, maybe I'll just hand over to him so that he can read out the questions. And then I guess some has been forwarded to your page as well. You will read the questions so that we can take care of the session.
Thank you, Mr. Adiola. The first question was from Mr. Sunday. Mr. Sunday is from Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, Lagos. He said, please, how does the Nigeria government, the local, the state, and the federal ensure proper environmental auditing? And he went further to say, are there any measures in place by the government to achieve successful environmental audit? Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for that. How to ensure a proper audit lies majorly with the management and leadership of an organization. If we go into international standardization, there are so many types of audits. You have internal, you have external, third-party audit and all that. But let's say that this question has to do with regulatory audit, local regulatory audit. That is the responsibility of management and leadership of an organization. However, in Africa and our works in Nigeria shows that in most cases, these operators have to be forced, so to speak, in quotes, to conduct environmental audit, most especially regulatory compliance audit. In the morning, I took you through the laws and those regulations, and even the standards that should be used for auditing and for testing different aspects, you know, of your activities. So it is the primary responsibility of the leadership and management of an organization, of a mining company, of a manufacturing company, of any organization that runs any operation that is capable of becoming or is a threat to the environment. So second aspect or second dimension of answering your question is that the enforcement agency in Nigeria is NESTRA, that's the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency. And usually when an organization does not commit itself to ensuring to conduct these activities, the enforcement agency, I used to call them the environmental police, the environmental police in Nigeria, they tend to approach such facilities to check their compliance with environmental regulations and to make them do the right thing. I hope I answered that. So first is your responsibility as in the leadership or management of an organization. But second is also the responsibility of the enforcement agency to ensure compliance with these regulations. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Sunday.
Thank you for that wonderful response, ma'am. Also, we received one from Aisha from Bosepa. She said, please kindly share the recordings if possible. Audio is breaking here. Aisha, don't worry, the recordings will be uploaded on the YouTube page so that I can have access to them. Another one is the one we received from Mr. Matthias from Global Georesources Limited. He said, thank you for this workshop. It is indeed enlightening. Please, what is the duration of these processes, ESIA, and what happens when a project has already commenced? Can ESIA be carried out? Let me take that again. He said, please, what is the duration of these processes, that is ESIA processes, and what happens when a project has already commenced? Can ESIA still be carried out? Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Matthias, for that question. The duration, the A part of your question, the duration for an ESIA to be carried out, let me say a minimum of 1 year. Why is that? You have, it's a detailed study that you have to capture a lot of environmental baseline information for that site. If you're going to cut down trees, you want to know what magnitude of the number of trees you want to cut down. If you're going to be building some drainages or not, we want to know what happens to the environment during the wet season and the dry season. The wet season and the dry season. And you know, in Nigeria, we have majorly these 2 seasons. So we want to know the peak of what impacts we are predicting during the dry season and what impact we are predicting during the wet season. So we want to capture the information in your environment during these 2 seasons. So this is very important. That is why the time frame for ESIA is elongated. To me, I would say it should patiently be done in 1 year. And then that brings me to your second question. ESIA is done before the project commencement. If you're in the mining sector, it is done even before you commence your exploration, your on-the-ground exploration activities, because while you apply for your exploration license and it is being granted, you would now have to move to sites to commence real drilling, you know, maybe core drilling to take your samples. And in the process of doing that, you're going to be cutting down trees, you're going to be creating access roads and all that and all that. So we want to commence the ESIA, if not possible before your exploration activity, then during the exploration activity. Don't move into site, construct, and everything is constructed and operational ESIA. That is a very, very wrong notion. And I'm very happy you asked this question because it's happening in Nigeria. Even amongst government projects, it's happening where you will see that government is executing a project and have already started executing the project before considering EIA is a wrong practice. It shouldn't be so. You execute ESIA before the commencement of your project. Now, what happens when a project has already commenced? The Federal Ministry of Environment has what is called post-impact assessment, environmental post-impact assessment. I don't know really where to place that, but it happens. And this is a study you can consider. Once you have commenced the project, it is already late, but it's better to be late than never. So that's why we still go in and see how to capture the information that is left, because most of the data would have been lost by the time you have commenced. If it's a mining project, you must have cleared out your overburden, the topsoil, you must have cleared it out, and we don't know what species of animals and plants that have been cleared out. We didn't have the chance to capture it. So that is an issue. That is an issue. I hope I took it. Mr. Sunday, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Ma. I also have another one here, and probably the last one we'll be taking for today is from Mr. Korede from CREM Consulting. He said, can anyone in the field of environment carry out environmental audit? And he also went further to say, also, what is the requirement for carrying out an environmental audit for a manufacturing industry in Nigeria? Over to you, Ma.
Okay, thank you, Korede, for that question. The requirement for carrying out environmental audits is to follow the regulations for that has been provided already, is to consult with an environmental consultant. Again, if it's regulatory compliance, local regulatory compliance is totally different from international conformity. Is totally different. So let's talk about, say it is a local regulatory compliance audit you're looking at to do for environmental auditing. According to the Nigerian procedure, you consult Richflood that we want to conduct an environmental audit for our facility at social location, and this is what we do. And then Richflood will now visit the facility and take it up from there. How do you know when to consult an environmental audit? Let me add that as the B part of your question. When an ESIA is conducted, every quarter after the ESIA have been conducted, you do a monitoring activity that is called impact mitigation monitoring. Because at that point, we believe that you have commenced construction, clearing of the trees, and activities are ongoing as after the planning, at the beginning of your project. So impact mitigation monitoring ensures that you follow the laid down plan on how you're going to systematically cut down the trees or avoid cutting down, or how your activities is going to go during the processes or during your project implementation. That is captured in the IMM, Impact Mitigation Monitoring. After that, and every 3 years, you now carry out an environmental audit. Is also a monitoring tool, like Adeola has explained, to make sure that what was predicted is actually happening and you are putting measures in place to mitigate or reduce or even avoid those impacts, is to confirm that. And again, is to confirm if actually the predicted impacts are happening or not. Or maybe it's even happening in a different dimension, what you did not capture during the planning stage, during the ESIA stage, what you didn't capture, but it's now happening. So what do? The auditor, the environmental auditor, will now look at those activities that are coming up, the environmental aspects and the environmental impacts and the mitigation measures that should be put in place during an audit. Like I said during my recap, continuous improvement is the key objective of complying with standards. So when an environmental audit is conducted, we now check, okay, where are the gaps? Where can the operator improve on? And what is really to be improved upon? And then it goes on and on in that manner. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ma. And before we round up, there's a message from Mr. Clement Ali. Mr. Clement Ali is likely to know if Richflood International carry out biodiversity studies.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Clement Ali. Yes, Richflood carries out biodiversity studies, and I would like you to go to the Richflood website, richflood.com/technical capabilities, richflood.com/technical capabilities, or just go to richflood.com, and then you will see among the menu a list of technical capabilities that Richflood undertakes. Yes, biodiversity is one of it amongst so many other studies that can be done. So I hope that this training is useful. We have approximately 34 participants who want to know whether this training is impactful for you and whether you are going to be implementing it. I thought we had a poll, but I can't find it. So we like to get feedback so that we also at Richflood can improve in the deliverables on our trainings. Not just this, you know, we have training. DM, can you put it on the future events that we are going to be having? We want you to be part of it. We want you to continuously learn and apply the knowledge. We are going to be running this for from our Rwanda office. We are going to be having this same type of training, but this time around we are going to be reviewing the laws and regulations for Rwanda and how it affects the sector, I mean the mining and the manufacturing sector in that area. You may want to hook up, and also there will be a repeat broadcast of this event if you don't mind. And we are also going to have it on our YouTube channel so that you can be a part of it. So thanks again, and thank you, Mr. Sunday. Thank you, all of you that have participated. I think we are taking a group photograph, right? Over to you, Mrs. Adeola or Mr. Sunday.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that wonderful session. Right about now, we would like to take a group photograph. Apologies to other participants who sent in their questions and we are unable to take them because of time. And we'll make available the video on our YouTube channel, and you can also visit our website, www.richflood.com, to get more of our services and then view our training videos as well on learning section of our website. So right about now, we would like every participant to put on their videos so that we can take a group photograph. Thank you.
Let's see your lovely faces. Okay. Oh, nice, nice. Nice. Let's have your faces. Thanks for attending. Some people are still trying to come up. Mr. Emuze Emmanuel, I can see you. Put on your photograph. Okay. Oh, so many of you are not putting it on. Put on your photograph. Let's capture you. Oh, I can see Franca. Okay. I hope the DM is capturing. Okay. Mr. Ele, thank you for attending. Thank you for attending, sir. Okay. Have you captured?
Okay. But the point is that you will make it to the window level, Abby.
We have muted our
So go ahead, because you already sent me a quotation for that 60, you know, so we are going to work.
Okay. Have you captured, Mr. Samuel? So we can call it a day. Thank you very much. We are going to be advertising more events and more activities through our LinkedIn channel, just like I presented. And we will look forward to having all of us attend the next event. Thanks and thanks. Share the news so that we can have all of us another time, another day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael Goro, Engineer Moses, Ndifreke, Mr. Ogunleya. Thank you, Mr. Kolapo, Mr. Korede, Mr. Okeme, Mr. Clement Ali. Good to see your face. Mr. Isaac, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you all. Abdul Latif, Jimo, Mr. Prince, Oh, Techno. We don't know who is Techno. Oh my goodness. We don't know who is Techno. Mr. Dele, thank you again. All right, so I would say good morning, yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See you another time. Bye-bye.
Bye.